Hey everyone, I hope you guys can hear me with this mask on. But first, I want to introduce myself. My name is Crystal Cofield. A lot of people call me Chrissy. I wanted to get on here to share my story with you guys. I know I'm probably not going to be able to do it in one video setting. So I will do, as much as I can. So, the purpose of me doing this is because I know that, like me, a lot of people may feel like what they're going through, that they may be by themselves or that they're the only person that's going through it, but you're not. And I had to learn that also about a few days ago in this mom group that I'm in on Facebook, and I finally introduced myself, came out of my shell to share because I felt alone. And then once I did it, I got so many, comments and women that share with me, that I'm not by myself and what they have experienced. And it made me feel good, honestly. It made me feel like, okay, someone can relate to me. And it helped me also continue to, push and want to, work on even more self-love and healing and stuff like that. So I'll start by, first of all, sharing that I became a mom, first of all, at the age of 13. I am a preacher's kid. I grew up with both of my parents in my life, yet I still struggle with low self-esteem. Sorry, girl, y'all, it is like majorly hot out here. And I'm walking. But I struggle with low self-esteem since the age of, I'll say started at 11, maybe 12, because I was dark skinned. I didn't like my complexion. I also dealt with a medical condition, which was eczema. And oh my gosh, I could not stand it. I could not stand how my skin was, on top of me being dark skinned. And then when you in, elementary school and stuff, you got kids that pick with you and just are mean and nasty and say things that helps make you feel low about yourself. So once I became about 12 years old, I started journaling. I also felt like my parents didn't love me because of how I felt about myself. So as a kid, I would purposefully write suicide letters and notes and leave them in places where I wanted my family or mom and dad to find them and stuff like that, because just seeking attention because of how I felt about myself, by seeking attention from them. And once I became, later on while I was 12, I ended up hanging out with my sister in the development where she lived at. And we used to have house parties and stuff. And yes, I could dance. That's one thing that I was confident in with dancing. Oh, I knew I could dance my behind off. And so I ended up meeting a boy that I already knew from school. And he became my boyfriend. Just from them house parties, he became my boyfriend. And I did end up pregnant. I pretty much had my pregnancy for 6 months. And then my family, finally asked. And I told them, yes, I was pregnant, because one of my sisters had came back from where she was at and noticed my stomach. So it was the shape of my stomach when I was laying down sleep at my other sister's house. So it was just like when my parents asked me, it was like, there's no need of lying no more. And his mom actually asked me before my sister came and even said anything. And I said no, because I was so scared. I was young, and I was in denial about it myself. So once my parents found out, I said yeah. And then it was like a huge burden lifted off of me. And so I eventually had my oldest son at 13. That year I was 13 when I had him, because his birthday was June 2nd. And then I was turning 14. So after that, I ended up getting pregnant again. And I had a daughter. I had a girl. I got pregnant. I was 16. And then after, mind you, during this time, I still have low self-esteem about myself. I even was like clueless to how guys was even want to talk to me, because I didn't like myself. So later on, I found out why, and it was because I had a shape. I had a body. But I didn't dress. Well, I did used to dress like that, once before. But I guess what happened was, when my heart got broken, it was like I became broken. And I just, didn't jump back into like loving myself and, feeling good about myself. And just, getting my nails done, eyebrows are getting dressed and all of that other stuff. I wasn't doing none of that. And so I didn't lift myself up. And I know it sounds like, and I did, I gravitated to guys, but not in a sense where it was like, oh, I was thought in or anything to that nature. These guys, they were my actual boyfriends. And they were. And it was just the simple fact that I gave my heart out quicker than them. Because, again, how I felt about myself. So I got pregnant again. I got 9 children, pretty much. I got pregnant. My first set are like back to back. Literally. Except for my first 2. But then after my second, then a year later with my third. Then after him, a year later with my 4th. Then after him, a year later with my 5th. And then there was 3 years that I had no kids, a break. And then I got pregnant with my 6th child. And then there's a 9-year gap between my 6th and my 7th child. And then a year between my 7th and my 8th child. And then I didn't really count. But then after that, I want to say Bria was born 2016. Then I had Bella 2021. Um, During these times, I've struggled. I struggled a lot. Granted, no, I did not have children to keep the guy around or anything to that nature. Once it was like, okay, you know, and I hid pretty much all my pregnancies. Because again, I was a preacher's kid, I was young. No, I wasn't thinking about protection or anything to that nature. I just had the wrong idea of love. And I gave my heart out a lot. And to the point where, because I gave my heart out, I always, first, if anything, my heart got broken each time. And once I became getting older with having my children, it was like, because of how I felt, people felt towards me, because of how I felt towards myself, it was like, finally, God is blessing me with human beings that's really going to show me true love and loyalty. Because that was so important to me. Love and loyalty. And real, true, genuine love and loyalty. I didn't quite know what love was. I just knew, these children were going to help show me, what it was. And how it felt. So I took care of all my children, regardless how old I was. Yes, I had, select few family members and my parents to help me a lot. It wasn't because I couldn't do it. It was just because I was young. My parents taught me how to take care of my children. And that's what I did. And I finished school. My dad wanted me to focus on school. He helped me out a lot, him and my mom. And so that I could finish school. So I didn't graduate the year I was supposed to, but I graduated with a diploma. And I was, I think I had 5 or 6 kids by the time I graduated high school. After that, I went to school to become a CNA. I went to Dawn Training Institute to become a CNA in 2009. But in those times, I did, deal with struggle. I was on Section 8, and I dealt with struggle because their fathers wasn't around, to help financially. Granted, they may have came around, so the kids can know who they were, but not to help me financially on their own. And so, yes, it became a complete struggle. It didn't become hard for me at first because my parents helped a lot. They helped a lot. Once I learned how to do it on my own, yes, it became a struggle. It became hard because it was like not knowing, but I was dealing with depression on and off. But what helped me a lot was journaling. And I ended up stopping journaling. But yes, at one point I was on Section 8. Then at one point I wasn't on Section 8. Once I became a CNA, I had the funds and everything finally to take care of me and my children. It felt so good not to ask anybody for help with trip money or lunch money or anything to that nature. And it wasn't until 2014 I have been on one of my second CNA job for about 4 years. And I was living in a home that wasn't Section 8. And once I lost my job of 4 years, I just knew, things was going to go down. Instead of me picking myself back up and, looking for another job, and being positive about it, I got depressed about it. And at one point in time, I was introduced to Percocets. And in 2014 is when I started doing them. 2014, I also started, things started going down. I started losing, the utilities started getting cut off and stuff. Like, it just, now I'm talking about it, it just feels like all I should have did was spoke life into myself. I should, instead of getting down and out about it, I should have went on ahead and been like, you know what, Chrissy, you can do this. Just find another job, You got these kids, do this and do that. I didn't do that. It was just like, I don't know, like an all-man situation. And I didn't give myself a pep talk. So I started taking perks because it made me feel the opposite of what I was feeling. It started making me feel happy. I was the, most kindest, nicest, person. And I was getting things done. Compared to when I wasn't on it, it was just like, whoa me. And I wasn't getting anything done. So I was on those for about 4 years. And in them 4 years being on them, I didn't want a soul to know. How I handled it was I only dealt with like 2 people. I wasn't going outside trying to figure out who had them or anything to that nature, because I did not want anybody to know what I was doing. I was ashamed. But at the same time, I hated when you didn't have them. I hated that withdrawal feeling. I hated feeling like, my body needed it to function. And then at one point, I started saying I just wanted to feel regular. I remember times where I would call the detox place but hang up, because that's how ashamed I was, thinking that this person may know who I am, or they may know my voice, and be like, Chrissy, like, oh my gosh, forgetting that I'm in a healthcare field, and the HIPAA law, you can't share anybody's business. But I was thinking that way. And before I don't mention it, there's one common denominator in this negative mindset of mine, and how I was thinking and what I was thinking and how I was feeling, what I was speaking. And one common denominator is the enemy. Because he knows what God has in store for me. He knows the plan that God has for my life. Yet he knew that mentally I may have known about it, but I was so consumed with, these negative thoughts that he wanted to keep my mental there. He wanted to keep my headspace in that place, because one thing he doesn't want us to do is gravitate to God, is to go to God. Good morning. He doesn't want us to seek help. He doesn't want us to go to him for anything. I used to tell my kids, the more negative we do, the more we are giving into the enemy, and the enemy is laughing at God. Like, hey, look, that's supposed to be your child. But look what they doing. Look where they're at. Look how they're thinking. And at one point in time, yes, I was into God, you know. I would go to the altar and cry and stuff and, you know, sing. And I always would just, you know, talk about how good God is or something like that, but not knowing, you know, this is this is all a part of the enemy game. But let me continue with my story. So during the times I was, you know, on perks, it was hard. You know, I didn't want anybody to know. Only a select few knew. I wasn't around, you know, my friends or anything to that nature. For a while. Now I'm thinking about it. I wasn't around them for a while. And it wasn't until May or Mother's Day of 2018, the day before Mother's Day, I woke up feeling like I can't do this no more. Well, at one point in time, I did try to stop on my own twice. And I went a week without. But it didn't last, okay? So finally, the day before Mother's Day, I woke up, got dressed, my kids were still asleep, and I walked around there to my mom's, because she didn't live but like around the corner, literally like 3 blocks around the corner. And I told her, she's looking like, Chris, what are you doing here so early? And I told her, I was like, I can't do this no more. I just can't do this anymore. And she's like, you can't do what? And it was just so hard for me to say the word, because people may have known, but I didn't feel like they knew. And I was so ashamed, so embarrassed. And that's how hard it was for me to say it. She just kept saying, Chrissy, you can't do what? What is it you can't do? And I just said it. I'm just like, I can't do, you know, can't keep taking these Percocets anymore. And then she just, you know, it's like, it's all right. It's okay. You know, she hugged me, told me to come in. We talked. She had her husband talk to me. They didn't feel like I needed to go to rehab, but I felt like I needed to go to rehab because I just was done. I just wanted to make sure that this was not something that I ever did again. So, but one part that I forgot was one time before this, I was walking. And I believe I was walking like from church. And all I heard was deliverance. And I just knew, and that's what helped make me even more anxious, that I would be delivered from it. I just didn't know when, because during that time, I was still on them. So I don't remember how much later after that, I went to my mom's and told her I just couldn't do this no more. And that day, I went to detox. I only went for one day because I was starting a new job the next day. And so after that one day, yes, I started my job, you know, after that. But one of the things that is a must when you go, I don't know if it's still the same, but we called it group. You had to go to group every single day in order to get the medicine, which is called Suboxone, it's a blocker to keep you off of the Percocets. So I did that. Eventually, I really don't remember, but I know I was going to group, and was able to make it to work at the same time. But then eventually I stopped working there and going to group a everyday thing for me. So what group was, it's like a group therapy session. Like everybody who was on something, whether it was Percocets, cocaine, meth, whatever, and everybody in there had a story. We did different activities, and one of the activities eventually was learning how to share our story. So, I went there for a while. I went there like the whole year, every single day. I went from me catching a bus, and then becoming friends, with the people and family, with the people in there. And they would give us a ride or pick us up, and take us. It was just a program that you have to take advantage of, because it really, you benefit from it and it helps you. And so when the year 2019 came, let me say this before I jump ahead. I also, out of those 9 kids, I have 5 boys and 4 girls. Now it's 4 girls. But then it was 5 boys and 1 girl. My daughter was the second oldest. And as my boys was getting older, well, one, I kept my boys in sports. They stayed in sports. Football was their thing. And Brianna was a cheerleader. And I kept them in that for a while. Up until they were, too old to play Little League or, City League football anymore. And, oh my gosh, there's just so much to my story. I think I done forgot some things. I know I forgot some things, because with my boys growing up without, a consistent father figure, granted my dad was, and he really tried his best. My dad really did. And he was very consistent with them. They were, my dad was a bike rider. That's what he did. So they did a lot of that, and he was very consistent with coming to their football games and stuff. But mind you, my dad was older. Even though my dad was older, he didn't look as old as he was, because he was very, very athletic. And so once my boys started getting to like, 5th and 6th grade and stuff, they would fight a lot. Some of them, not all of them. And they weren't troublemakers, but at the same time, like my one son, Chris, he was hard-headed. Elijah, I thought he was a sneaky, hard-headed one. Because I really thought that I thought it was all Christian. Jaden, but no, Jaden was the good one. He didn't get into any trouble. He was just so quiet. My oldest son, Isaiah, he was just spoiled because he was the first grandchild. He just was just so, his hair was just everything. I just miss those days, man. I used to walk my kids to the rec and stuff. Like, every time you see me, you seen them. I think, wait, I gotta start. I think might gotta start over. I'm not sure.